talking about countertop brewing appliances. Now, Aaron, it almost sounds like you might have a. Do you have a second tab open?
I did, and I just closed it.
Excellent. Okay. So I'm with Aaron Wells, and we're talking about the Beermkr. And this is a little impromptu. So those of you that are maybe just now getting a notice on Crowdcast that I've gone live, I just had an opportunity to talk to Aaron, and it was interesting enough that I wanted to share it with everybody else because he's got a really neat system, and we'll just all learn together about it. And we're talking about doing some experiments, maybe do a side by side with my Pico S, or maybe he's got some better ideas. But if you've got a question or two, we're not going to make this a whole program. I don't know how much time Aaron has allowed, but we're not going. It won't be as long as a typical program. But I thought if Aaron could just briefly tell us a little bit about the Beermkr, and then this will set the stage for maybe an event in the near future. So again, if you got a question, or if anybody wants to come on screen, we might even do that too. So right now, so Aaron, I guess most everybody's benchmark of a countertop beer device, for the most part, is a Pico product. They certainly had more out there than anybody else. So could we start with that, and you just give us an idea of the differences between your device? And of course, we can't buy a Pico anymore anyway.
Right. So it's a great place to start. Pico did an incredible job bringing the category of countertop beer brewing out into the zeitgeist of home brewing, and did a pretty good job of showing people who have never brewed before that it is possible, right? And that's the big piece from our perspective is we see so many beer lovers who have these holdups that are preventing them from getting into brewing. So our goal with Beermkr, much like Pico, was to widen the world of brewing when it comes to bringing beer lovers into the fold. So Beermkr is an all-grain countertop beer brewing system, brews a 12-pack at a time, and it is completely open, customizable. You can drop whatever ingredients you'd like into it. Beermkr goes through the brewing process, and then it also goes through the fermentation as well, which is where we begin departing from Pico. Pico makes wort, whereas Beermkr makes beer. It's kind of what I like to say. So there is solid-state thermoelectrics inside the Beermkr itself, as well as CO2 monitoring systems where it will monitor how much CO2 the yeast are producing at any point in time, and it will adjust the profile based on where it sees the activity level of the yeast. So if you are brewing with, let's say, a Chico strain, you want it to be in the mid to upper 60s. So let's say it's a 66-degree primary fermentation, holds it at exactly 66. But then as it sees that CO2 production starting to fall, it'll start flipping the temperature up a little bit into the mid 70s.
So what you're telling me is there is no separate fermentation vessel. With correct. The Pico, I had a little mini keg, and your device is an all-in-one.
You got it. I'll show you right here. We actually have, so this is an Imperial IPA that we have fermenting right now. And you can just see the chambers. The bottom is our Trub collection and general yeast settling. All the brewing is done in a bag. And this is actually pretty cold. It's going through the cold crash phase right now. And then on the top, this is where yeast come in, dry hops and whatnot. They get placed in the top of it. We have, let me see if I can move to a new machine. Go. So this is a squeeze bar that we install inside of the machine itself. And you have your tub that gets put into the top, your bag hangs here, and then this bar will actually compress the bag. So you place that in and it pushes the liquid up. So what this does is allows us to create an incredibly simple system where the brewing happens up in this top chamber. When the squeeze bar is in, the squeeze bar comes out, all of the work falls down into the bag, and the fermentation process begins. So it's again, another departure from the Pico in that there's nothing to clean. There's really just the tub, and you toss that in your dishwasher when you're done, and there are a couple of valves, and it's very easy to manage.
So you toss the bags; they're not reusable.
So the bags, you can reuse them. With our kits, I'll show you. So this is one of our maker kits. This is our Jurassic Ale. It's a ESB. So inside of here, we have So you get a fresh bag with every brew, so you don't have to clean it. Which is one of the things that we're trying to solve with the Beermkr system, is that constant need to always be cleaning, always be sanitizing. And so with Beermkr, you get a fresh bag, and here's a fresh waste bag that you saw on the other machine that was currently under fermentation. And then you also get grain, malt, sugar malts, hops, yeast.
So is it pre-milled? It's ready to go?
Yep. Pre-milled, pre-measured. And we sell obviously the pre-done kits. We have a handful of kits that we're doing. We're brand new, so we're still working on new recipes. But really, the beautiful thing about this machine is you don't need a kit to brew, right? So again, a departure from the Pico is because we're entirely open. You get to put whatever you'd like in there. You're not dealing with Pico packs or dealing with the manually programming the customization of those particular pieces. You just toss everything up into the top. And
so you see Michael's asking some good questions there.
Yes. Yeah, and we do. We sell 4-packs of bags by themselves as well. So yeah, it's you get a 4-pack of both the waste bag as well as that fermentation.
Okay, so for an upcoming program, I was going to brew a Irish red ale for obvious reasons.
Oh yes.
So if I was going to do that, I assume you don't have a kit. You said you kind of had a limited selection.
Right.
So what would I need to order if I already had my brew maker in order to brew my Irish red ale?
So first, start out with what you want your grain bill to be. Usually you would start with some maris otter for that, maybe some darker caramels to put in, and then you would find a good hop. Kent Goldings, Fuggles would be good choices for it. Pick out a yeast. We've got, we carry all the Fermentus products. We also have a number of Lallemand, because we're a mail order company. We don't like carrying liquid yeast just because it doesn't travel well. So, so from us, you'll be able to find all the dry varieties. So there aren't good dry Irish yeasts. So sticking with something in the English side, at least from us, is what we would probably recommend. Maybe a Nottingham, a Windsor, an SO4 from Fermentus. And then we also, I haven't shown you.
So I understand the ingredients, and I can use all my own ingredients. So what else do I need that's the replenishable items that are, if I already own my beer maker, do I need 1, 2, or 3 bags? Yeah,
it's just the bags. It's really just the bags. And so part of this as well, I haven't shown you this. We also have a departure. So it comes with CO2 cartridges. So when your beer is done, I don't have any finished bags, but this is our beer tap. So the beer tap, it has an opening in the center. It's a pressure vessel. Then you just place your bag into directly into one of these shells. You close it up, you plug in the valves, and then you have beer on tap. So there's no transferring, there's no exposure to oxygen, there's no exposure to bacteria. So from a brand new user's perspective, in order to get your beer out of the machine, you just hit the 2 buttons, one on the top to release it from the brew chamber, one on the bottom to release it from the waste. Drop it in your beer tap, and then you put your beer tap in the fridge. And here's one of our, this is fridge in our brewing lab where we just have a whole bunch of, we're actually doing a smash series on the top right now that we're planning on releasing later this week, which is really exciting. A Citra, Simcoe, we got CTZ, Cascade Centennial. So, you can do multiple beers side by side, and you just have beer on tap without having to ever expose it to the outside world.
Yeah, Michael, sadly, that's true. It does look like my basement, except his stuff is cooler and newer.
I love to see your basement, Doug.
Oh, it is. We won't take the camera in there right now. Maybe we'll take it in there if we can do our side by side beer maker test.
Yeah.
So a lot of us have, because I recommend to people, I like the little, the little 2.5 gallon kegs.
Yes.
So if I already had one of those in a CO2 bottle, I mean, things would ever be just as normal. I could just empty that into my 2.5 gallon keg. I would probably do a transfer through the tubing. So again, I didn't get any oxygen. Hit it with the CO2, and it's just the same as anything else, right?
Yeah, you can add as much home brewing to the process as you'd like. And that's kind of that's our attitude with this is, we're going to give you the setup that we feel is best for the brand new person to come and not have to deal with all of those home brewing startup headaches, which are really challenging, right? Because you can mess up that transfer, get oxidized beer, and you start drinking. You're like, why does this taste like last night's party? And it's because you got oxygen in there during the transfer. Or, if it starts going sour 2 weeks into the bottle, it's probably because you got a little bug in there on your transfer too. So we're trying to eliminate all of those procedural hangups that really can trip up that first-time brewer. And it's really fun along the process. We're obviously avid brewers ourselves, and all of our other fermentation products, we have thousands of those out in the world too. And just talking to these people who are currently brewing the normal way, and they're saying, "Oh my God, I cannot believe how much time this thing is saving me," because I throw it in. And I just watch it happen on the app after 5 minutes of setup, and then I'm drinking the best quality beer that I've made because my setup it could be still in the bucket carboy, and you're doing 3 or 4 transfers, or you're bottling and you don't have a perfectly oxygen controlled environment to do that in. So it's really fun to see. While we did develop this system, principally with solving all of those roadblocks for new brewers, the existing brewers or even retired brewers are like, I just can't do it. I don't have time, family, job, etc. It's phenomenal to watch them get in here and create some just incredible beers.
So the little Pico S was, and again, I brewed all grain brews with actually my own grain bag that I put in it and everything. I had worked with them to kind of understand how to do that. And it was, for the most part, lights out brewing, except when I had to pull the grain bag out. Mm-hmm. So, how close to lights out brewing is an all grain batch with this?
So you take about 5 minutes to set it up. So we could set up a beer if you wanted to.
Go for it.
Yeah, let's do it. So I've got this Jurassic Ale out here. So let me see if I can find a good position here so you can see the machine. All right. There we go. I think that'll do. So we have our bag. I'm going to go grab some valves real quick.
I am going to take him full screen just so everybody can see this. You don't need to see me. So, Aaron, you're full screen.
All right. Hey, everybody. All right, so I've got my valves here. Here are my white valves. I just screw these into my bag. Here's my bottom valve. Screw that in. Okay, and now I hang it up here, and I take one of my gray valves and I screw it into my brew tub. Okay, I insert the brew tub, and now I've got a second gray valve and my waste bag. Screw this in. All right, and now I just snap them all together. I take my squeeze bar, place it in. All right, and now I'm going to go and grab the grains that came in my Jurassic Ale kit.
You know, this might be the best impromptu.
Yeah, there we go.
And I mean, this, Aaron, right. You are ready, buddy. I mean, to have had almost no notice, I am quite impressed.
That's kind of the nice thing about it, right? So it's so easy to do. Like if you had, 3 or 4 of these kits standing by, or if you built some recipes, they're all packaged in their own, bags. So I'm going to open up. Here we go. Here's my 2-row. Let's see, what other grains do we have in here? All right, so this recipe comes with 2 bags of 500-gram 2-row. We've got 50 grams of carapils. We have 100 grams of caramel 60 and 100 grams of Victory. Sounds like a pretty tasty beer.
It sounds delicious.
Now, so we pour these in. And, all right, all set. Now I just need to go measure out my water. So all of our recipe kits come with a little card here that shows you how much water you need to put in. So right now this is 6,600 milliliters of water. Also shows you all the ingredients you have in the kit. So this one, it's got a 60-minute Amarillo, 20-minute Cascade, and then a biotransform yeast pitch Cascade as well. So that gives it a really nice, a nice creamy body of hops in there. So now I'm going to go measure out some water, and I can take this over to our sink. Let me see if I have a container of this. So we also give you one of these pitchers. And
I like that pitcher. It looks very easy to manage.
Yeah, you just kind of turn it on. There we go.
Now, while that's filling up with water, Aaron, Michael asks, do you plan to ever make a larger brew maker?
I would love to do that. Absolutely love to do it. 12-pack is great. It's still obviously it's a little small if we're going to have a couple people over and people want to have more than 2 beers. So, you can drain your whole batch at once if you do it. The good news is it's really easy to set the thing up and you can just make more beer. But the challenge is because it is indeed a fermenter, it has to stay inside the fermenter the entire time. So you can't, like the Pico, whereas you can, with the Pico you could make 6 beers back to back to back to back and let them go ferment out. You can't really do that with this machine because you have to baby it the whole time. So here we go. So this is my first. This is about 3,500 milliliters of water. All right. Or 36, I'm sorry. I'm going to go fill up for the other 3,000. I kind of put the setup of this machine much like just setting up a pot of coffee. You put your grains in, you put your water in, and you hit go. And, you come back in about, whenever you get the notification on your phone. Actually, the heating process and then the cooling process is right about 24 hours. So about the same time the next day, you just come back to your beer when you get the notification, and and then you pitch your yeast. And whatever else it tells you to put in. So let's see, depending on your recipe. All right, so there's my 3,000. See if you can see it. It's a little shaky. All right, so 3,000.
Close enough.
Yeah. All right. Oops, sorry. Do that. There we go. So now we're nicely up here. And then go. Okay. Let's close it up. And now, actually I don't have, let me see if I have my phone on me.
Okay, so the hops are in such a way that they will go into the beer at the right time.
Yep. So that's an interesting thing, and what I'm going to get to next. So before we get there, so here's my Beermkr app. I find the machine. This is our brewing lab. We have a lot of machines in here. Here we go. Here's machine number 5. I start a maker kit, and then I choose which maker kit I'm brewing. Here we go. I'm doing the Jurassic Ale, so choose that. And then this is fun. It actually loads up a video, shows you how to go through all the steps if you wanted to watch a video. And then there are these little animated GIFs that show you step by step, pretty much what I just showed you guys. So you get all the way to the bottom, hit done, and it says, all right, now go over, look at your machine. There we go. Now my button is blinking, so that means it's ready to brew. I hit brew, and now it's pulsing. And here we go. We are brewing a beer.
Okay, so when is the next time you have to touch it?
So the next time we have to touch it is in about 24 hours. I'm going to get a notification that says everything is done. You lift up your basket of grains, or you actually remove that squeeze bar, so then your basket of grains actually drains all the way down. So all of that nice sugar wort has now fallen down into the bag. You've got a little bit up top. That's where you put your yeast and you throw your hops in. And then you go for then you hit the button again, and then it'll send you a notification when you're done. So
you could go out of town right now,
yep,
and come back 24 hours later, and it would be telling you needed to do something.
Yep.
And what would that be it's telling you need to do now?
Then it would tell you that you've got to pitch yeast. So, okay. Yeah, so now this is also a really interesting part about how the system works. So we wanted to make it as simple as possible with as few no pumps, really. I mean, that was a huge part of it. So what we're doing, we're actually bypassing the boil. And this is, I think, a really interesting part of this is because we're bypassing the boil, we give up a few things, right? So one, we give up the kettle caramelization that you get out of the boil. Yeah. But what you don't give up is sanitation, because you're actually getting up into full-on pasteurization temperature. So everything that will die in a boil is already dead.
Pico was the same thing, and actually that's what I really appreciated about it.
Yeah, it's lovely how that can produce, so you can pull back. Let's say if you wanted to get a little more caramelization in your malts, you would sub in a little extra darker malt for it, or a little extra, let's say, caramel 20, if you're trying to get a little bit more of that. So there's more of a recipe change that you would go through in order to get to the same place. Hops are a different story, right? So we've actually we've actually worked with some well-known professors at Oregon State on the best way to do this, and we're actually the hops are going through a steaming process before we pelletize and package them. So one of the things, and which is how we can pitch hops in with the yeast and receive the same results. So the nice thing is, let me see if I've got my...
So there's no kettle hops. Is that what I'm hearing?
That's correct. So we have these steam hops. So they actually, let's say my Amarillo, this one has a 60-minute Amarillo, a 20-minute Cascade. So the hops actually go through a steaming process for that 60-minute time frame, the Amarillo does. And the oils volatilize like they would in the boil, and the alpha acids isomerize. So the result is actually a very stable product that you don't need to refrigerate, you don't need to put in your freezer, because those volatile alpha acids have already been converted into their isoalpha acid salt form. So it's stable, and this is the kind of stuff that the big brewers have been doing for decades. But we're doing this now for a device that is going to make your hop or your life a lot easier.
So what do you recommend for the guy who maybe doesn't want to buy steamed hops? We've got a freezer full of hops we want to use and not buy any new ones.
So, totally fine. So what you do is down here. So this bottom piece, actually, you can see it right now. It's actually full of, halfway full of yeast because it's all settling out. But when you're done brewing, you just pop this off, put that onto your stove if you wanted to do.
Go back to that, Aaron. I didn't have you full screen, just so everybody can see.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. So you pop off that waste container. You pull some wort from the bottom, and you just make a quick hop tea out of it. And then you get your bitterness that way, toss it into the top. It's not as convenient as using the steam hops. And you could actually put your hops in as well into that waste bag during the brewing process. You get about 8% utilization of your acids that way, which is totally fine if you like to do it, but you have way less control over it unless you go through and you pull off and you do that hop tea.
So more or less, they're workarounds that, as a home brewer, you find perfectly acceptable.
Right, exactly. So the way that we're viewing this is, as a home brewer, you're used to doing this stuff anyways. And same deal with bottling. You can bottle. We don't recommend it just because it introduces the risk of oxygen, the risk of bacterial infection and whatnot. But if you're a home brewer, you know how to do it safely. You've already gone through that learning process. So a lot of what we're doing is making this process so easy for the brand new people who come in. Now, that said, on our app, we do sell the entire spread of steam hops. You can get like 60-minute, 30-minute, 20-minute, 10-minute steam hops. And they cost the same as buying regular hops from the store. So our view is, we're not going to make it any more expensive to use our product than if you were buying it from, one of the big online retailers or your local homebrew shop. We're just going to make it really, really easy and really, really fun to make.
This is truly lights out brewing. I mean, if you could now leave and come back 24 hours later and pitch your yeast, that's as close as it gets.
Yeah, exactly. And the cool thing about this too is when you're done with it, you don't I've used Picos before, and I think that they're phenomenal systems for what they were designed to do. But there's still some downfalls to them. They're pretty loud. They take a lot of, when it comes to cleaning, you're pouring stuff in, you're running a cycle, you're moving things in and out. There's a ton of interaction that's still happening with the Pico.
Yeah.
A lot of cleaning.
The noise factor was its biggest drawback for me.
Yeah. It sounds kind of like a dishwasher without the insulation on it.
So what is the noise of this one? Now that we're on that subject.
Right. No, that's a great question. So let me do this. I'm going to plug this machine back in. I actually unplugged it prior because I was hoping to show you this. So when it power cycles, it will it'll start vibrating. So what we have on the bottom, get this going. Take a minute to vibrate, but there we go. So this is the computer really close to it. So it sounds like if you were to leave a cell phone on like a plastic cabinet. So there's some reverberating noise that happens throughout here. But what's nice about this is this allows the bag to be slightly shallower, and the vibration will actually move all of the settled out yeast down into this bag. So you can actually see in the bag there's hardly any waste product at all. The end result, you hit these two valves, pull it out, and you have a clean beer ready to drop into your tap that doesn't need clarification or any sort of you could certainly do gelatin fining or use some Werflock or Irish moss in there to polish it, but the goal is to have beer that is clean and doesn't need anything else when you put it into your beer tap.
So I'm going to switch your mic You may disappear momentarily. There we go. I switched it to a little extra sensitivity.
Okay.
So is that noise just periodic? With the Pico Brew, it was pretty constant.
Yeah. So if I think I put my phone down somewhere. There we go. So the noise itself it's a required. We say you should do it just to make sure that use clears out. But so in your app, what you can actually do, if you can actually, I don't know if I'm kind of
let me take you full screen. There we go.
All right, so in the app, you can actually click on your vibratory settings, and you can set quiet hours for it. So if you know when you don't want it to vibrate, say like, I'm going to be asleep, don't bother me between 12 a.m. and 8 a.m. You just save that Monday through Sunday, and then it won't vibrate when you don't want it to. So yeah, and the reason why we have this vibration in there is, yeast over the whole cycle, they'll continue to settle out. As they're fermenting, they'll just slowly fall down to the bottom, and having the vibratory motor continue to work throughout the process is a really good way to prevent buildup and allow that yeast to settle out in the area where you want it to, which is not in the bag.
So most people are going to put this in their kitchen, and a lot of people eat in their kitchen, or adjacent to it. So is it so noisy you couldn't? The Pico, you couldn't eat anywhere near it.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to be watching a movie while it's vibrating. It's a little annoying, but it does it for about 10 minutes every 6 hours or so. 10 minutes.
Oh, is that all?
Yeah. Yep.
10 minutes every 6 hours. Okay. All right. So that's just periodic. I mean, that's 4 times every 24 hours. And I did that in my head.
Exactly, right? So the nice thing, it's almost like sending your janitor through and sweeping the floor. That's really all it's doing. So every little while, it just...
So if it did come on while you were eating nearby, you'd say, okay, it'll quit in 10 minutes.
Exactly. Or you can do what I just did and unplug the machine. When you plug it back in, it'll start vibrating again.
And that's... And nothing bad. I mean, it picks up right where it left off. Yeah. Well, Aaron, I will have to say this is the best demo I think I've ever been involved with, and you did it with no planning, no notice.
Well, I'm glad. I mean, it's really it's just, the machine's easy to use, so it's kind of fun to just toss it in. So
we're going to talk a little bit more, but if there's somebody in the audience that just can't wait until we do a program together. Can you type in the chat where they can learn more about the device?
Yeah, here we go. So the best place is Beermkr.com. Definitely good. I spelled that right. And we've been shipping for about 2 months. We're brand new. We were a Kickstarter campaign back in 2018, and then we were planning on shipping in 2019. And then there were some issues with tariffs and all kinds of stuff that forced us to scramble and get stuff out of China real quick. And then COVID happened, and now it's 2021. So it's been a wild ride, but we're finally out, and it's really fun to see people really engaging and sharing recipes. Like, one of the coolest parts of this thing is the Facebook group that. We have all of our Beermkr owners on. It's a private group. They run it, and so you've got these people, kind of like yourself, Doug, who have a lot of brewing experience and love beer, and they're making beer with this thing. And then you've got these brand new people too, who are like, I've never done this before. Like, if I want my beer to taste more orange, what should I do? And they're like, well, you could try a hop substitution. Try Citra. That's great. Or one of these experimental hops, or put some orange in it. It's like, and this is how you do it. So you have, these experienced brewers who are helping the new brewers kind of come together and, share recipes and share best practices. And it's just it's a really exciting thing to watch.
Well, and that may be our challenge when we do a program is how to, if we can get it started that quick, what are we going to do with the rest of the program? But anyway, that's a great problem to have. I don't know that I've ever done anything quite that quick. And again, I, I don't want to take up a bunch of your time. You've been kind enough to do this, and for those that just jumped on here, thank you. I appreciate you joining us as I learn about this device a little bit more. And let me know. Give me some feedback. Do we want to learn a little bit more about Aaron's device? I know I do, but I'd love to hear from you. And Michael's got one last question. We'll take Michael's question and then move on, Aaron. Do you read it there? Do you see it there?
Yeah, I do. I do. So the short answer is yes and no. The long answer is we're working on it. There's right now what we have, if you can see it here. There we go. We have a DIY recipe section where you can add new recipes. This section is still pretty basic, but what we do have is a template that we'll send you. Right now it's just an Excel template that is essentially the profile for the Beermkr. It lets you add all of your own ingredients, calculates out how much water you should put into it, what the efficiencies are, absorption rates, all that kind of good stuff. Calculates out IBUs, OG, all the stuff you'd expect out of a recipe builder. And then, so what I can do here, I just created a new recipe. Let's see if we can see it. There we go. So right now what we have is, it's pretty basic. This lets you select what your yeast strain is. So we have all of the fermented strains loaded in here. So this is an S23 lager, and I choose my gravity level. Let's say I'm going to do a low gravity S23. And then what it will generate for me here are the recommended fermentation temperatures and times based on that particular yeast strain that I'm using. So this is a good starting point. And then you'll be able to you can tweak every one of these values if you'd like. You want to put your primary temperature at something different, that's totally fine. Lag, rest, conditioning, there's some dry hop options in here. So if you were dry hopping, you can hit that and it'll send you notifications when it's a good time to dry hop. But over the long haul, we're going to be building the initial recipe builder into it, so you can construct your grains, your hops, your yeast, all that stuff in there. Share those recipes with your friends who are also brewing, and start doing fun things like brewing competitions, big brew days, social brew days. I mean, it's fun. There's so much here, and in particular now that this COVID environment has shut us off for brewing together with our friends. It's a fun way to still stay involved.
Well, and I think Michael's kind of helped us narrow down our program, and I think it would be a large percentage of my audience is already going to have all the ingredients. Mm-hmm. So I think it would be more along the lines, I want to brew, here's my favorite recipe, how do I adapt that to Beermkr?
Yeah, that's awesome.
And I guess as long as it's not a Doppelbock or something like that, it ought to be pretty straightforward.
Right, and I think still a Doppelbock would be a fun one to play with. So.
Well, but what about the kettle caramelization?
Yeah, no, that's tough. I was brewing a wheat heavy, and really, it was a challenge for that.
Yeah.
So you can't really do that. There's some things you can do to emulate it, but yeah, it's tough. You're right. It's tough.
I almost wonder though, since we're talking such a small quantity, if you put a little bit of it on the stovetop, and just heated some of that up and then added it to it. It was a brew. Could you do that?
Yeah, you definitely could. You definitely could do that, and that's the fun part about it.
Okay. Well,
yeah, you're not locked in.
I love Doppelbocks, but that may not be a good summertime beer. But that actually would be a great challenge. Well, let's brainstorm on that.
Right.
This was awesome, and just thank you so much for your time. And we look forward. We'll brainstorm on this a little bit more. But cheers. That was really a lot of fun. And again, everybody that joined in, appreciate you joining in. And do let me know about the program and see what you would like to see, on a longer form version with Aaron.
Awesome. Thanks,
Aaron, I'll be back in touch. Thank you, buddy.
Of course.
Bye-bye.